Hey there, teacher friends. This is the Flash because I'm fast. My friend Bill MacDonald, the right ELAR prescription doctor, couldn't make it today, but he asked me to give you a little mini lesson on transitioning. You might be wondering why he asked me for help. Well, when you think of Flash, you might think of lightning and thunder. So I have a quick question for you before we begin. And do you see the lightning first, or do you hear the thunder? The answer to that question also lies within the alphabet. Since you hear thunder after you see the lightning, I want you to think of a transition. So you see lightning from a distance, then there's a transition period, and I hear that if you count 1001, 1002, 1003, however many seconds that it takes for you to actually hear the thunder, that's how many miles it is. And so, lightning, see it, transition time, hearing the thunder. In the same way, we're going to use a teeter transition totter and a C transition saw to help fourth and fifth grade students with the most difficult two questions from the 2019 test using a simple concept of one, comparing and contrasting, compare, transition, contrast, using four colors. And then another one is comparing how are things the same compared to how are other things different. So all your students had to know in order to do well on the two questions that we're going to look at that were fourth grade readiness and fifth grade supporting questions is how the relationship works between the lightning and the thunder, the compare and the contrast. So before we actually get to the questions, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. I clicked share screen at the bottom for those of you who use Zoom. I clicked on advanced in the middle of what pops up, content from a second camera. Then I click the button share so that you get to show up in the corner of the screen and your students can still see what you're wanting to show them. So this was the reading test for fourth grade from the year 2019. All right. And you can see it's what they call the item analysis. And basically, if you look here, the left side has the reading, the middle has the math, and because fourth grade was doing writing until this coming year, the right column had the writing. And so the two questions we're going to look at are questions number 10 that only got 41% correct in May, and question number 23 that only 50% got correct. So what I want to ask you is, sometimes you might be in a district that says you can only use this curriculum or this content or this program. Well, I stay up all night thinking of strategies to help teachers who need to differentiate their instruction and think of ideas or ways to help kids remember things for a lifetime that sometimes they can't even remember till the next day or even until they walk to the next classroom. So I hope that you like these strategies. I'm going to be once again using my readvising graphic organizer, and I'm going to show you Let me get it real quick. This one is laminated. And so if you remember, when you look at the top part, reading is content, where you have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, or you have a paragraph where you have a topic sentence. So if you see me stick up my thumb here, a topic sentence, and then you have the specific supporting details. So basically, it would be the main idea of a paragraph, or a central idea, or a summary, or a focus, or a position, or a thesis. And my updated version has the word section or selection, because sometimes kids are getting confused between those two words, with them and the word paragraph or paragraphs. Everything in a passage ties together in reading, editing, and revising. And so I have some acronyms that talk about pretty much every reading skill and revising skill under the sun that you could possibly get. But what I want to talk about today is the arm part, where you're using your arm to understand content, or add, remove, replace, or move content. And so what we have here is, let me turn off that light so you don't get that glare. In a transition relationship, we have a cause and an effect. The cause is the why. What is the reason that had something happen, that the effect happened? The actions, transition, come before the reactions. The comparing comes before the transition, contrasting. The conflict comes before the transition, which leads to a resolution. Something happens, or something is explained, or something is given, that transition, that leads to some more transition in time. So with that in mind, the teeter-totter, the lightning, thunder, Mr. Flash, myself is going to help you with the two questions, and we'll go ahead and start with question number 10. This is the one that only got 41% correct in Texas. It's a fourth grade readiness. It was TEAC 4.11a. And so a fourth grade readiness question is a fifth grade supporting. So if not even half the kids in Texas knew how to understand the main ideas of two paragraphs, not two passages, it wasn't a paired passage, it was a pair of paragraphs. All they had to do was understand the content of two paragraphs, what they were mainly about. And so you can see that the correct answer is going to be F. And what we're going to do is we're going to color code the two paragraphs so that your students can see. And I suggest that you can either use a scale with coins, the teeter-totter, the seesaw. If you use a scale with coins, then you can, for each color, let's say you're using pennies or nickels or dimes with the quarters, for each detail that you find for that color, you can put one little coin on the scale and see which one has the most mass or the most weight, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so letter F says, and keep in mind that all even numbers, even has two vowels and four letters. So all even numbers on a test can only have F, G, H, or J as a response. The opposite of even is odd. So all odd has one vowel and three letters. Skip counting from there, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. All odd numbers can only be A, B, C, or D. So make sure that you understand why at least the state of Texas has changed the test, so it's not always A, B, C, D. It alternates back and forth between, let me turn off my phone so you don't have to hear anybody bothering me for a little bit. and we'll get back to them later. So F was inventions lowered the cost of marbles. So we're going to see how much of the paragraphs 5 and 6 can we underline in red. G, glassmakers figured out how to cut marbles easily, how much we can underline yellow. And so a third of your students thought that paragraphs 5 and 6 were mainly about cutting marbles easily. So we'll see what caused that distractor to get such a high percentage. H, that glass is melted in order to make a marble. Only 11%, only about 1 out of every 10 kids. That would be the green. And the blue, the shape of the marbles has improved over time, only 15%. So the two most chosen answers are F and G. And all I did was print out paragraphs 5 and 6 for you. I'm just going to flip it over so you can see it. And so there I've color coded. And if you look closely, there's a lot of red, which is A, only a little bit of B, the cutting of the glass, yellow, only a few lines of green, letter C, and a few words of D, the blue. And so if you were to teeter-totter, you're going to see that the most weight, the heaviest content is going to be letter A. Let me remind you what A said. It said that the inventions lowered the cost of the marble. So if you look and see the content that I underlined, if you can find an easier way to make the glass, then that's going to lower the cost, cause and effect. That if it's easier and faster to make them, then that's going to lower the cost. If more people buy them, people aren't going to buy things unless the cost is lower. If they become very popular, supply and demand, you tend to buy things that are popular, and if they're that popular, it must be because the cost is low enough to be able to afford it. The machines that roll them into small lumps of melted glass into a perfect sphere, all that is going to lower the cost. They have these machines that make them instead of having to do it by hand, and it's going to lower the price. Now, the words even more were sort of a little clue that all of those other things they were telling you were going to bring the price down of marbles. And so I would suggest that you teach your kids to color code the 4 letters so that way you can see which content is there the most based on the letter and the color that it goes with. So let's check the other one. Question number 23. I didn't even have to print out the passage or a paragraph. All they were asking was and it was a paired passage, and it just says to read these sentences from paragraph 12 of quotation marks, capital Max, apostrophe S, capital Find, period, closing quotation. So the title of something, I'm going to put a T above my head. And so the first passage, the first sentences came from Max's Find, and it has someone talking. So think of quotation marks as someone dimples, what they say as their mouth, and their closing quotations as their closing dimples. And then we have the tag, the person who was talking and their said word. And so it's a child. I circled the 2 people in the content green. Who is the relationship about? Dad and his son. because you call him dad, you have to put a capital. And again, I'm talking about these things because you're going to have to be teaching editing, which is conventions, and revising, which is adding, removing, replacing, or moving content. So let me show you what I did. Capital, I never knew you looked like that, comma, capital dad, period. Capital it, apostrophe s, it is. So you have your kids toss an imaginary ball, it's up in the air, and then they can say it is. They can break it apart to make sure they know the difference between it's possessive and it is something. Really awesome. That's not true, but that's an opinion. So I circle opinions blue just because it's my favorite color to see pictures of you and some of the things you enjoyed. Made a little red heart that had to do with emotions when you were my age, Max said. So it's talking about a relationship between two people, the boy looking at his dad from the past. So the only one that it says, the question says, which sentences from messages in bottle expresses a similar idea? So instead of comparing and contrasting, what we want to do is we want to compare that box paragraph to the letter choice that has a similar idea, because that's what compare means. How are they the same? And so the only one that has a relationship between two specific people is letter D. A fisherman and a soldier's daughter are the two people, and an emotion there. And I meant to put the heart on thrilled. Receiving something is great, but the emotional response is thrilled. So you would draw a heart there. To receive a letter and learn more about her father. So the soldier's daughter and her father. So it was comparing how the father used to be from the fisherman. And so all you had to do was see which, by comparing, which ones have similar content to people, the emotions, about relationships from the past. So that's how I would suggest that you teach this at your distractors. 22%, almost a fourth of the students said it is a glass bottle, not a person, and inside is a rolled up piece of paper. This message in a bottle may have traveled halfway around the world before landing on this beach. Well, that might have been a paragraph or a first sentence, and the kids sometimes just pick the first sentence that they see. And that wasn't about the idea from this uh, section of the other passage. They do so for different reasons. Most often it is simply for fun. Do so is very vague. It is very vague. They're not talking about people, and the only reference to emotions is that something is fun. So there's not enough content there to pick anything. C, occasionally someone, we don't know who, tries to send a message, to use a message in a bottle to contact a particular person, we don't know who. In 1914, a British soldier fighting in a war wrote a letter to his wife. Okay, well, this would be the one that I would think would get the second highest, not letter A, because it's about a British soldier and a relationship with the wife, but because there's no emotional connection in this one compared to the emotional connection that's in letter D and in the other passage, the best answer is going to be letter D. So there you have it. That's me, Flash, getting ready to say goodbye in a flash. Please do me a favor and click like on the video in YouTube. in Facebook, go ahead and subscribe to my Right Prescription, Right ELAR Prescription Club. That's also known as May the Force Be With You, because some of you are still going to have to be writing full-length essays in response to passages we just don't know what the score is going to be. So please share or tag your fourth and or fifth grade reading teacher, ELAR teacher friends. And if you are a teacher from sixth, seventh, or eighth grade and have kids who are struggling with comparing and contrasting, this might be a video that you might practice, or you can practice this question with your students. Since they'll never get this question on the test, you can always use lower grade level tests to help practice your student skills with your students, so that they can build from a foundation from the lower grades. All right, let me know if you have any questions, uh, or need any help. My next video will be for fifth grade, the most difficult reading question. And I'm already getting lots of emails about trainings. My trainings for June and July are $1,000 for the Rio Grande Valley and 1,250 if you're out of the Rio Grande Valley, and that gives you all the handouts and digital copies of everything. My August through April and May trainings are going to be $1,750 for one day, and they're going to be $1,500 for multiple days, and that's going to be regardless of where you are at in Texas. And again, that includes all the full color handouts and the digital copies of the binder, the folder, and graphic organizers. And if you want, you can email me at writing_doctor@yahoo.com for more information about training. That's writing_doctor spelled out at yahoo.com, or send me a message with your email address and I can email you some information. I'll be doing some webinars this summer, like I promised, on very specific reading skills, along with some editing, revising, and open-ended extended answer and essay responses, uh, so that you won't have to wait until school starts, and some of you can't really afford to bring a presenter to your campus or your district because your district is so small. You're always welcome to invite neighboring districts and share the costs. I have several districts that are doing that this summer and in August. So feel free to invite as many as you want, because I only have to be in one location. I just need to know how many people are going to attend so that I can bring enough handouts. And I just need the email addresses of the people who are in charge from those campuses or those districts. God bless you guys.